saw in 2020, even the smash and grabs, I think this is actually part of a grand conditioning project. Hey, thanks, Big Hair Tsunami. It's April the 1st, 2022, 1 a.m. Phones are open 833-311-1984. Live stream notifications are going out now, so I'll be right back. This is Edges in Your Mind, Chief Crow.
Is in your mind. The edge is in your mind. The edge is in your mind.
And I believe I have another voicemail. I was interrupted by, well, Comcast, the internet company. Took care of that, got right back on, so we barely missed any time at all. Evil Coyote says blacksmith of Roman gods was Vulcan. He married and protected Venus. Kind of like how Will Smith protects Venus, and he protects Jada in the green Venus-esque dress. And of course, Will Smith. Yes, definitely. It's all encoded. It's in the names. Very good find there. And of course, this Venus connection also correlates to the green of the tennis court. All right, let me go ahead and start off with a voicemail. I was trying to locate Zareth the Alchemist's missing coffee mug. It got Mandela'd or something just a moment ago, but I will have that resolved, FYI. Okay, here we go.
Tim, this is Michael in Seattle. I'm listening tonight, right before, well, it's West Coast time, almost April 1st, but they are messing with your transmission. At first, your show kept cutting out, no sound, and then they got you repeating. They got it on a repeat where everything you say repeats, and it's so annoying. Nobody will listen to it. Now, I think they're messing with it because
Now, he's not saying that I'm being repetitive or boring. He's saying that my signal's being messed with, and he may be onto something. But listen to this. Again, this is the individual who's there in Seattle, ground zero of the next major uh, disaster piece psyop, which might even involve the space station and the Space Needle in some way. And maybe Elvis is thrown in the mix there.
remember a couple of years ago when I was listening to paranormal radio stations and broadcasts that I would notice that sometimes that they would have put things on repeat to where you couldn't listen to it, and I was almost sure that it was whoever that's in control of the technology from a higher level, CIA, whatever. They're messing with your channel, I think. Anyway, that's it. Bye.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think it's paranoid to point out the obvious. I mean, this is a verifiable fact. And hey, thanks again very much to the Big Hair Tsunami for keeping us up all night with this. And I will stay up working late tonight because I'm starting a new job soon, and my shift will be after hours, like probably what you'd consider graveyard shift. So usually the live streams are earlier, but I am doing this intentionally because I'm conditioning myself to stay up later. I'm moving my clock forward. But it's going to keep us censorship proof, and it's also going to help us become the Penguinzilla you just heard in the background. And really, that soundbite represents this channel unfettered. We're already unhinged, but we need to be unfettered. And that's mainly just been a problem of, budgetary constraints, which every small business faces, but we've been specifically targeted. And it may be shadowy CIA agents, like the caller here suggested, but I do think we can verify and say we have been targeted, whether it's by YouTube fascists, maybe just people I've offended. And we have to take that into account. I do think we've offended a few people. And when I say we, I kind of mean, I'm not trying to shift the blame. I present the memes, I present our findings, but what we represent is inherently offensive to a lot of people. And some of our memes do have sharp edges. So when you have animosity like that, it's very easy for someone to have videos flagged. Like, I'm still trying to figure out who was behind last week where three of our channels were blocked. Three heads of our Hydra. Now it's an infinite Hydra. Infinite number of heads on this thing. All right, let me go through some comments. All right, joined by Mom with Sons, Celestial Wonders, Infinite Muse. Again, Evil Coyote, good comment here regarding the blacksmith of Roman gods married to Venus who protects Venus. And if you listen to his acceptance speech, we're talking about Will Smith in the role of King Richard. He's talking about how he had to protect those girls. He said that he needed to protect his family. And that's what came out in his slap against the comedian, which I mentioned in the last live stream. The Nutty Professor has predictive programming for that whole incident. But anyway, he uses the word protect multiple times. Yes, the Nutty Professor, and this is something I discussed earlier tonight, it has a scene where Jade, or Jada, is being defended against, or she's being ridiculed by a comedian, and she sends her boyfriend to beat him up. And what's more, there are more recent articles relating to her role in The Nutty Professor, where she talks about the hair they made her wear and how it totally ties in to the bigger context here. But anyway, this thing about blacksmith being married to Venus, very interesting. It says this identification, here we go, Vulcan. We're talking about Vulcan as the manufacturer of art, arms, iron, and jewelry, but the husband of Venus. So that's a pretty blatant indicator that what you're looking at is, again, like I said the other night, it's Holly weird magic disguised as regular drama. All right, let's move on here. All right, Phase Polarizer says the dinner scene in The Nutty Professor is a crack up. I haven't seen it, and I haven't seen a lot of these movies. I try to do my due diligence. I watched a terrible rom-com today, only because it came out today. And it happens to be the case that they're doing like real-time predictive programming, where you barely even have time to watch something, and it's happening. Or in the case of this thing with Will Smith, the media tie-in to the event happened after the fact. After the fact. And he had to point it out. He said, wow, I acted just like my character in the movie. So we're having like this post predictive programming. What's going on here? But it's working whatever it's doing. The public is utterly contained mentally. Another thing we pointed out is that the Babylonian king slapping ritual is a thing. It's not just a meme. I saw a meme that looked kind of cheap. No offense to whoever created it, but it looked kind of crop and droppy, making me question whether it was a legitimate meme or if it was meant to discredit those of us who are noticing things. Well, anyway, here's the meme. And the reason why I didn't take it seriously is they use the Temple of Satan's Baphomet, and that's a fake group. Like, apparently they don't even believe in the devil. They are kind of just um, liberals doing cosplay for the most part. They don't even worship. It's just all theater. But my point is, I looked into this because it says in ancient Babylon, you had a ceremony where statues of the god were paraded around the streets, and that the king was slapped in the face by a high priest, and that if tears flowed from the king's eyes, it would be an omen of the prosperity of the country to come in the coming year. So, turns out that yes, there is indeed this thing called a Babylon king slap in ritual. And again, what's more is that Chris Rock went on stage, his first public appearance after the event, to a standing ovation. and then he just gushed tears. He didn't talk right away. He just cried. So, yes, you had a ritual of some guy getting slapped and then crying, just like this particular ceremony. And you can read about the meanings behind the ceremony. Mostly, I believe it has to do with humility. Kind of like the Pope, when he washes the feet of these other people, it's some kind of show of humility or that they're human just like us or something. And it doesn't even prove it. It just indicates that they really feel like they have to prove it. Yeah, the ancient custom of striking the king on the cheek and bringing him to tears. Check, check. This has happened. And again, the tears were reported, and it was at that Welburn Theater. All right, thanks again, Big Hair Tsunami, and everyone else who's been Salty Siren, and those who purchased artwork from the store. We're keeping this channel afloat and on 24/7. I just watched a movie I was talking about, Moonshot. Again, a rom-com, but it's predictive programming for the future generations that are going to Mars. And everything you would expect is going to be true. You will have minimum wage baristas being bossed around by sarcastic robots. Like that's what the future basically is. It's just a continuation of what we have, but they're replacing a lot of redundant people. So I think it might be intentional because they want to make Mars look like such a better place. And there was one point in the movie where I think there was some sort of giveaway or Duper's delight evident in the scripting because the character, the protagonist, had overheard a conversation. Someone was FaceTiming her boyfriend on Mars. And she said, or he said to her, how come there's no time delay between here and Mars? And they threw out something crazy, some bizarre statement like uh, quantum uh, time something, just some kind of weird jargon. But it was like they had to make up something to explain the lack of any sort of meaningful delay in the signal. And this is something we see with the ISS when the students are asking questions of the people in the ISS. Sometimes they goof up on the time delay. In fact, this happened when Trump was in office. He was in the Oval Office sitting next to Ivanka and an astronaut, and they were talking to the then Captain Peg Whitson on the screen, and he said, who's ready to go to Mars? And both of them raised their hands before the signal would have reached them. It was a little premature. Anyway, a few things about this movie is, well, one, when you leave the Earth, you're given a little doll, and it's a planet Earth emoji face doll. It's like a little globe with arms and legs, and it sings a song about we'll miss you and your thoughts, but not your CO2. Very, very much, I think, misanthropic, especially when you get into the idea of Astrocrete, which is, to me, tantamount to cannibalism. All right, phones are open 833-311-1984. Phase polarizer Mandela effect on Independence Day. Oh, he was in that, wasn't he? I hadn't thought about it, and it might be relevant. Independence Day was directed by the same guy that directed the really horrible movie Moonfall, which we've been talking about, which is another one of these movies that has a lot of significance to what we're seeing right now, as well as a lot of predictive programming and conditioning to get people to accept the existence of an absurdity called space junk. And now space junk is a thing. It wasn't a thing, now it is a thing. They just manifest it by printing it in the headlines. It's word magic or something. I mean, look how they've successfully just changed the world just by changing and reframing things. Once it was this thing where we had to worry about ubiquitous terrorists radicalized by the Quran. Now it's ubiquitous terrorists radicalized by QAnon, but it's like kind of the same structure. And then COVID replaced the threat of radical Islam, and nobody thinks about that anymore. And then Putin gets rid of COVID. Now it's all about Putin, and now it's all about this slap at the Oscars. So Will Smith has actually effectively removed Putin from the world stage. But that's how fast they change scenes here. All right, let's see here. Going through some other headlines. Again, I brought this up yesterday. Alex Jones is on the run, more or less. I'm not sure how long he can hold out, but he's being fined $25,000 per day until he shows up for some deposition with the cult out of Connecticut. I mean, I don't know if I want to go too deep into that story because if you don't already know the backstory of it by now, then you haven't been paying attention. I guess the reason why it's such a big story and why they continue to focus on it is it might be one of the greatest gifts that they've actually ever given us as far as media critics. And I believe a lot of it was just arrogance because the media has gotten away with this type of thing for a long time, but it wasn't so easy to challenge it in the past. And previously, before the internet, before Twitter, before YouTube, before real-time media breakdowns like this, there would be no way for people noticing glitches to systematize that information and actually get to the bottom of it with these real-time collaborative investigations, which is what we have been doing here. Our fact-based deconstructions of these events reveal them time and again to be hoaxes from top to bottom. You're living in a dream world if you think that Chris Rock didn't just play a role where he got slapped in the face in a movie that's portrayed as reality. And the people who think it's reality are in the movie. I mean, that's kind of how this metaverse thing actually works. I don't think it has anything to do necessarily with having your smartphone strapped to your head. Like you don't have to be plugged into the CGI metaverse. You're already in this construct. We call it the world stage, but you can see how you're lured into it. You're put through the screen by participating in these psyops and treating them like they're real, whether it's a stage slap in the face or buildings falling or any number of things that they've invented. All right, let's go through some comments. There's some ridiculous stuff I've come across in the last few days. Again, anti-vaxxers are domestic terrorists now. You already knew all that. But to me, and I bring this up just because I think it's a dead topic. I happen to think that anti-vax is very 2021 at this point. Anybody still carrying that baggage is suffering from some kind of residual trauma. You just need therapy because it's a mind virus at this point. It's like hypochondria, Munchausen syndrome by proxy. That's what the WHO actually has. I think that's what you would diagnose them with. But it's just been a mind game, and that's how they can go from one to the next. If it's a mind game, they don't need to physically change anything. They just change your frame of reference. Flat Bastard says everything is a hoax, but then he has an emoji suggesting that he's being sarcastic. Well, let's start with this. What isn't a hoax? People will say, well, they can't all be fake. Some of them have to be real. Well, okay, well, we've been keeping track. You probably haven't, or you wouldn't have arrived at that erroneous conclusion. So list off the things that aren't hoaxes. I think we'll get to the truth faster that way. Anyway, this is April Fools in a Clown World. And my point here is these April Fool's Day jokes, or these pranks that they play, just seems like they're not going to carry a lot of weight this year. I mean, we'll see. And the commentary today is so unbelievable. O.J. Simpson says he understands where Will Smith was coming from. Like, we need O.J. Simpson's hot take on domestic violence or retribution. Strange choice. Again, more indication that it's a psyop because O.J. Simpson himself is a psyop actor. Unless you actually think that he killed some people or was somehow even close to being involved in anything other than a horror movie, a made-for-TV reality television portrayed as real. Kind of like the ISS. You could look at the space station as a 22-year blooper reel, or just a 22-year reality TV show. That's what I should say. So a 22-year reality TV show, but it's treated as real. You have no way of fact-checking it necessarily, and it's superimposed over your reality. If they can pull that off, then obviously they can pull off staged events like the O.J. Simpson drama and a mere slap in the face. Tomanoid says, welcome to Earth. Yeah, welcome to 1984, which I really think is just the blueprint. And that's one of these stories, one of these books where the main theme is that the news media has such tight control that they write history. They change it, they alter it at will. And they have such tight control over the memes that nothing contradicts Big Brother's reality. That's what gets Winston Smith into trouble. The reason he gets into trouble and he gets dragged into room 101, Ministry of Love, and gets tortured is because he didn't throw away one piece of information that he was supposed to. He was part of the Ministry of Truth division of, like the paper shredders, but he didn't dispose of something he was supposed to have, which left something that contradicted. It was a glitch in the matrix, kind of like a Mandela effect in a way, not in the sense that the Mandela effect believe, but in the sense of it's a fragment or it's a bit of residue from a reality that is no longer the consensus reality. Live Life says, could you imagine having to be Chris Rock and know that you're going to be slapped? Well, actually, I would be very comfortable with it knowing what an expert Will Smith is in slapping. He gave a course on slap tech. He gave a course on how to convincingly slap somebody. In this case, I think he slaps a child, well, simulates a slap. And TMZ reported on this. So it's actually something he's trained in. However, I do think that Chris Rock had his hands behind his back and he was probably clasping his own wrists for fear that he might inadvertently flinch and give away the fact that he knew it was coming. And Hulk Hogan's son, presumably an expert in the field, said no sell, which is a wrestling term for the move didn't sell, as in the person who was the recipient of the blow didn't actually respond as though he was actually smacked, so it didn't translate as being real. Let me go through some comments. Salty says, why believe the narrative? They are actors. Yeah, there's another good point too. I like to point out the fact that the major psyops, all of them, in fact, are driven primarily by actors. And just look back at the last 10 or 15 psyops. Who sold it to you? Tom Hanks? It's always the celebrities. So, again, the burden of proof when it comes to this type of situation shouldn't be on you. I mean, I think it's interesting that people choose to believe this stuff. But I look on Twitter, and the people that I follow aren't really fooled by this at all. Like Freethinker right away said, clearly staged, you don't hit like that in real life, could be a shaming ritual. The Black Eye Club could be a thing. By the way, another one of the things I do here is I do meme debunking. So if I see a meme that's just not reflecting the truth, I will often debunk it. And I think this is crucial. I think it's an important thing to do. I think it's a service to all mankind. I mean, we're just doing quality control. But more importantly, this needs to be preserved because they would have us censor the memes that are inaccurate. They would have us burn them and not be able to evaluate them and know why they're wrong. And so sometimes I put up memes and I don't endorse them. I'm just vetting them. Case in point, Jan Michael Vincent of Airwolf disappeared from TV at the same time that Melania Trump arrived in the US. Yes, this is a fact. And yes, they do have a curious resemblance, like striking in some comparisons. However, I did fact check this meme, and there's just no way. We actually have the guy from Airwolf aging separately, and he's not married to, he's not even connected to the Trumps. It's a bad meme. But I'm just putting it up here. I'm debunking it. And so I'm just setting the stage because we're constantly being censored for things we don't endorse. Anything I've ever been censored for, anything that's actually violated their terms of service is probably something I don't believe in. Celestial Wonder says John Michael Vincent lost a leg and looked horrible. Right. Well, it's just a meme. Now here's another one. JFK Jr. lives. Apparently I don't want to even really go here. I mean, this is the QAnoners Jesus fantasy. It's all fan fiction at this point. I'm just gonna start calling it fanfic. And the people who take their fan fiction very seriously are like, it's almost like furries. The ones who need the litter boxes in the schools. So now they're decoding all kinds of stuff, and they've concluded that this guy who goes by the name Wano Saven is JFK Jr. in a face mask and this cowboy hat, and this is new. So anyway, I'm just pointing this out. There's a lot of new hopium. The QAnoners have been revitalized. I'm not exactly sure what started it. I have a feeling this has something to do with probably the guy Matt Gaetz from the Truman Show house. Matt Gaetz putting Hunter's laptop into the public record. I just don't think this Biden laptop thing's going to go anywhere. It's like, are they just repeating stuff? They ran out of ideas, and so they're going there again. This Biden laptop canard no longer interests me. All right, let's continue. Going through my Twitter feed, by the way, it's real Tim Osman. I'll put a link in the chat. For the most part, I retweet things that I don't necessarily endorse, but I think are worth discussing. I'm going to play this one. This is probably one of the most contradictory statements you're going to hear in Clown World today, or here on Clown World. This is from about 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Well, no, if she got the flu for 14 days, she's as protected as anybody can be, because the best vaccination is to get infected yourself.
And
so if she really has the flu, she definitely doesn't need a flu vaccine. If she really has the flu,
she should not get it again.
No, she doesn't need it, because it's the most potent vaccination is getting infected yourself.
But she said.
So there you have it. I can't even repeat what he said, because I will be taken down for medical misinformation or something. That's how bad things are. That you can't even quote the experts because they contradict themselves so much that sometimes quoting them at the wrong time goes against the prevailing expertise, which of course can change at any moment. Science is very fluid these days. Fact fluid. Fact fluidity, is that a thing? Can't be a fact bigot and just hold facts to, things that relate to objective reality and truth. No, you got to be fact fluid for the new age. Russian invasion of Ukraine could infringe upon the space program's neutrality. I watched one of these videos today just for laughs. Like I said, it's a 22-year plus blooper reel. Some of the worst science fiction in the world, but it's funny, fun, entertaining in the way. Like, I watched Jurassic Park, like part 3 or 4 the other day, and you're just basically looking at like these old dinosaur movies where people are fighting against a dinosaur on a screen, pretending like it's there. Like, I can tell when people are LARPing, and they're LARPing on an under-budgeted movie set, and they're trying to just act sincere. And I watch all these group hugs, the high fives, the drama, the ritual. Well, here you have Roscosmos's command being transferred over to the Americans. So the Russians are not necessarily beefing up there as much as they are down here. They're all getting along. The Russians showed up wearing blue and yellow astronaut suits. So you can kind of see where it's all just, to me, I think the thing up above is a major PR stunt about how we all need to work together and worship the globe together. Now check this out, though.
To fellow crew members on the International Space Station and made their way into a tiny Soyuz capsule for their return to Earth 250 miles below. Earlier today, the 3 men made it safely back to the ground, plopping down in a big puff of dust in the Kazakhstan desert. Inside that capsule were 2 Russian cosmonauts and 1 American astronaut, Mark Vanda.
Okay, so here they are landing after, I think he was up there for 355 days. But anyway, I was watching the ceremony up above here, and I'm just going to pause it for a moment, where they're passing around a key. And what I noticed is the back edge of the commander on the left is obviously blurry because he is a green screened in character, or in other words, there's a background here that's not really there. You'll see here I have the sound off, and I looked at this closely, and I used to do a lot of video editing, and I know if I was working on a project and this was my work, I would be fired. And I wonder, how did these guys not get fired? And I think it's because you don't have a big pool of people to draw from if you're trying to recruit people to do CGI gigs for NASA. So there's only like, it's might be someone who's not the best for the job. Not to mention, they can't evolve it too much too fast without giving it away, without it looking really bad compared to the footage from a couple years ago. Like, if you really want to see what I'm talking about clearly, look at the footage from the ISS in 2005. Compare it to the footage shot from a handheld camera on 9/11/2001, and then compare it with the more recent stuff. These comparisons give away quite a lot. And I'm going to put some time into debunking these things segment by segment in my 10-minute shorts. I'm doing this series of short videos because it may not be obvious to people who aren't necessarily experienced in video editing, but yeah, there are definite tells here. And something else that I found to be just equally unbelievable and ridiculous here is now they're claiming that you can see the astronauts from your backyard. And I used to just exaggerate, just pure hyperbole. I'd say, hey, look, because it's true, you can see too much detail. For an object 300 miles away, in my opinion, it's an unbelievable amount of detail. And I pointed this out, that if you can make out these particular modules, then you should be able to discern where an astronaut is, and you would be able to see an astronaut from the ground. So what started off as a joke actually became a very popular headline today, where it's all over the space news that some guy in Germany, I think for the first time, photographed astronauts in space from the ground. And of course, it was lucky. They made the point to say it was lucky. Man photographs ISS from Earth's surface and captures astronauts in space. And they were able to identify who they were, and then they've compared that footage, real time, to the onboard footage, which, when you look at the spacewalk footage, you can tell by the diffusion of the lighting that it's underwater. But they actually correlate it, and they pointed out, look, on 3/23/2022, these two guys were outside the space station, and here's a guy in his backyard looking up, and there they are. Does anybody here find this believable? And of course, I have pointed out examples of NASA putting hoaxes on their site. They did put up a video, or rather, it was purported to be some video clips, but it was the ISS transiting in front of Saturn. And it took a while for someone to debunk it. And of course, they just blamed the photographer, the so-called astrophotographer, once they got caught. Kind of like the Jussie Smollett of astrophotographers. Like, they kind of put some of them out there, I think, so they make it seem like, oh, if someone tried to trick us, we would find out. Because they don't call out the other stuff that is just as questionable. And there's quite a lot. Food lines in besieged Ukrainian city visible from space. These space hoaxes are not even all that impressive these days. But they will have this constant refrain of, from space, things look like this. We get the God's eye view. My favorite part of this movie was back right after the pandemic was declared, and they said, from space we can see that the pollution is clearing up, and more lives will be saved by having clean air than would have been lost to the virus. So they kind of make the argument that maybe an annual virus would be good for the earth. That's their misanthropy speaking. What's behind this their strange wish to want to save you. All right, phones are open 833-311-1984. I'll go through some of the stuff that we talked about earlier today. A couple things to look forward to. One, April Fool's Day, nothing in particular, but tomorrow on the 2nd, Colin Kaepernick's going to be an honorary captain at a Wolverines game. Just kind of random, might be noteworthy. And then on the 4th, there's going to be some interesting drama around the Supreme Court worth paying attention to. And it also happens to be the 75th anniversary of I believe what's happening is ESPN is going to start celebrating Jackie Robinson's 75th anniversary. The anniversary of him, quote, breaking the MLB color barrier. And it's going to be a month-long thing for the most part, but it kicks off on 4/4. All right, so we covered The Nutty Professor featuring Jada foreshadowing the Chris Rock incident. Lots of Holly weird magic disguised as mere drama. A lot of it's given away in the names of the characters. The Illuminati Venus slap ritual. Definitely PR stunt confirmed. JFK Jr. is hawking anti-aging products on Telegram. And they're using images that appear to be doctored of Donald Trump to suggest that it's working. Kim Jong-un is Elon-esque in missile commercial. If you haven't seen it, it's worth watching just for the pure entertainment value of Kim Jong-un trying to behave like his missile launches are somehow comparable to Starship. He actually plays it off that way. And this is some great footage. I mean, it kind of shows you how, I think, idolized Elon Musk is around the world. He's some kind of hero. So yes, North Korea airs new missile launch with Kim Jong-il as a star. But the U.S. intel says likely it was faked. So they're calling the rocket launch that this guy does fake. But here he is acting like Top Gun. Now this is worth pointing out that this rocket here is purported to be fake because it looks like every single rocket that SpaceX or Blue Origin launches, does it not? Doesn't look any different. And before we get any further, because to me this looks like CGI, but it could easily just be a blimp. It could just be a cylindrical blimp with some jet-assisted takeoff there. But there was something that happened recently where I think it was Rocket Labs, no, Astra. Astra's rocket launched sideways last August. One of its rockets didn't fire, but it stayed vertical. Here's a clip. So what you're looking at is a rocket that is weirdly hovering and going sideways without tilting. One of the strangest things that I've seen. And the only reason it made sense to me is I'd seen these compilations that would pretty much suggest that what you think of as rockets are usually just blimps. That's why we call it the Billionaire Blimp Club, in case you were wondering. The Billionaire Blimp Club, convincing people that they're going to other worlds, when they're probably just distracting you from the fact that they're building their Martian paradises beneath our feet. Planetations that they control. That's my theory. I have a few reasons. It's not a coincidence that Elon Musk and Richard Branson are both involved in hyperloops. Perfect for simulating space travel. Ties into Elon Musk's fixation on Gene Wilder and Willy Wonka. Explains why he dabbled in candy manufacturing. So if you don't see where I'm getting at here, Elon Musk is something of a Willy Wonka in the sense that Willy Wonka takes you to this other land, not Martians, but the Oompa Loompas. But basically, you go out there, you follow him out there, and it's a one-way trip. And of course, what are you going to do? You're going to work. You're probably going to make candy for the boring candy company. But my point being, I think with the Hyperloop, you could simulate space travel quite convincingly. And would it really even take all that much? People are really not that hard to fool these days. And take a look at this. So here you're looking at Kim Jong-il's missile shooting up I want to ask, where's the camera? Like, who's the cameraman here? Like, who is the guy on the moon that recorded the lunar lander or the when they went back? Did they leave a cameraman behind? Because who was able to tilt the camera back? Who's recording this? Did they have a drone above it, perfectly positioned? And for a drone, it's awfully still. It almost looks like this is a hypothetical 3D environment, as in CGI. Now here's Kim Jong-il dramatically taking off his sunglasses, and he and all of his buddies here all check their watches at the same time. But it's kind of a Hollywood style thing. Let me play some of the music. Now, you might call this fake, and they'll say it's fake, and they'll mock it. US Intel says it's fake, but it's realer than a lot of the stuff NASA shows us, just to put it into perspective. Like, I don't even think there's any difference in the tech or in the agenda. It's the same symbol. It's still just an obelisk, and it represents the same thing. You can kneel before it in terror, duck and cover because it's got a nuke, or you can worship the obelisk and kneel at it like the Pope does. And then you have the people who think it's taking it into space. So you genuflect at the thing as it's going into the heavens. This is all obelisk worship, and it's all about the power of the state, the monolithic global cult that runs this place. It's the same symbolism throughout. It even has the black and the white Masonic checkers. I suspect he just purchases old used rockets from Bezos or Musk and spray paints them. I mean, they look like cheap knockoffs. But again, watch this. And at the end of this little clip here, my favorite part, the soldiers cry in joy. And I'm like, wait, why? Why are you crying? It's just a missile. It's not like it's going to the moon. Pushes the button. So you can't call that fake and laugh at it unless you're going to call SpaceX fake and laugh at it, because they're equally bad. This is some of the worst stuff I've seen in terms of like trying to be a. This is supposed to threaten you. Like this rocket's going to come and get you. Look at this. It's a balloon. It's a blimp. I'm sorry. It's a blimp. It might even just be pure CGI. Now I'm just going to cut forward to where the soldiers see it. So you have a slow motion scene where they're all cheering and laughing and they're super ecstatic. Okay, now here you have the soldiers breaking down and crying. Like you'd think he just shattered an incoming comet that was going to kill us all. Like he saved us from something. Crop and drop CGI, says Salty Siren. Yeah, absolutely. Worse graphics than a modern video game, says David Pryor. Well, one of the giveaways is the camera. Where's the camera? And this is something that even sophisticated SpaceX fanatics don't see. You can ask them and they won't know how to respond, but you will find videos where the Star Trek, or what is it? No, Starship is landing, and you have a view of it as it flips and then it lands perfectly on the ground. However, there's no way to explain how you get that view because it would necessitate a drone camera beneath the rocket as it's landing, a drone camera that somehow would be impervious to the forces it's subjected to, one that wouldn't melt. It's just not believable. What is believable is that it's a simulation where you can put the camera anywhere in the sim. All right, let us continue here. I had a few other bookmarks. Los Angeles Guaranteed Income Program will pay 1,000 people $1,000 a month for 3 years. Here's how it works. See, it starts with this, but then it becomes Elon Musk will pay guaranteed income to 2,000 people, 2,000 a month to live on Mars. Here's how it works. And it won't be all that impressive anyway when you get there. Like I said, I was just watching this movie called Moonfall about the future Mars bases, and I think it's going to work. I think they can actually pull it off. I'd like to say I think more about, of people, that they're not dupes fundamentally, but I think the Martian project is going to work very, very well. I think people are going to pay for it. And of course, that's one of the reasons for all of this scaremongering about the environment. They want you to think the Earth is damned. That's what the characters in the movies espoused. Earth is doomed anyway, we have to start over. Utopia. Mars is a blank slate. It's a canvas. It's something we can project our hopes onto. And then you can start excluding what you want to exclude. I mean, obviously on Mars, you're not going to have property rights, no guns, no MAGA hats, and you can just kind of see where it goes. And they're already getting people used to the idea of quarantining minds, masking your speech. I think that's one. Okay, so we have the Illuminati, Holly weird magic disguised as drama. But the drama also serves another purpose. I'm talking about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. I think that's a slap in the face of comedy itself. Like, there's a point where it's not a joke. Put a mask on that. You should have been vaccinated against that kind of mind virus. It's a correlation they've made using the lexicon, the vernacular, all the language you would use to describe a pandemic. They've already applied it to information and to memes and ideas long before the pandemic thing. My contention here is that the elite recognize that the internet is an infodemic and they need to clamp down on it. And it's not just about memes, right or left. It's about meme control. And I think it always has been. All right, so today, April Fool's Day 2022, in the morning, as in probably about 6 or 7 hours, I'll be live again. I usually do recaps, and I do have callers in other time zones who are interested in calling in, so I'm definitely open to that. And again, I've been getting a lot of voicemails. I do play them live, so if you want to leave voicemails, it's 833-311-1984. We quite literally keep up with everything here, including the Kardashians and the real potentially dark agenda behind that. Really what we're doing here, again, it's Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's the only way to really remain sane. If you read the description of Mystery Science Theater 3000, it's basically about a captive audience held by a hostile alien whose purpose is to drive the humans or the captives crazy with bad science fiction. And they retain their sanity by mocking it day in and day out. And I kind of feel like that's what we're doing here. It sort of, in a way, it has a therapeutic value. Perhaps it even inoculates you against the worst or more destructive aspects of being in a psyop zone. I mean, most of it's secondhand anyway. But you can't avoid all of the brainwashed out there. But anyway, I think that's the kind of objective take we've maintained on this whole thing since the beginning. That's why I'm comfortable calling this Clown World. And really every day is April Fool's Day. All right, we'll be back in the morning or in a few hours. Open phones, as always. Leave voicemails. I had to start over again because our service was cut. Got it restarted. That's actually twice today that we've had live streams interrupted, ending abruptly. Almost seems like a pattern. Almost seems like it's possibly even not a coincidence. Anyway, this is a Solomite Fly auto hoax. I'm going to return it to the 24/7. If you want a wrench, I will be dispensing wrenches in the chat for the next half hour or so while I do archives and stuff. All right, thanks again. Have a great night, everyone. Appreciate all the support.
CIA be lurking, I be in the turban. Little ones stay cursing, older ones out twerking. Talking about lack of education, streets are always dangerous. dangerous. Bluetooth speakers playing, do you really hear what they saying? Do you know what that mean? Are you down for the team? They speak through signs and symbols, you can learn about these things. Live by 9/11, Club of 27. Once you think that they in heaven, nah bruh, it's a legend. It's all according to the code. Them Illuminati with my mind, body, and my soul. That's why they